Okay. Test, test, test. Sounds like you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think it. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We advertised the presentation for 6:15, so we'll try to get started on time. But we're really glad you're here and we're excited about how this process is wrapping up. The purpose of tonight's meeting, well, first of all, I'm Beth Quindry with Shockey Consulting. This is April Snee from my Kansas City office. And we were hired by the city to help the community put together a comprehensive plan. And we were helped in that effort by a couple other firms. If you all have ever worked with Rise Community Development, they are here. They're in the other room, but they've been helping us as well. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is really to bring you the draft recommendations for the plan. So the draft recommendations are in the form of a vision and draft goals and objectives. So that's what we'll be focused on tonight. And it really is the culmination of a year's worth of, oh yeah, slide. I know, I always talking and moving slides is hard for me. So the putting together this plan really started back in 2022. The city's Planning and Community Design Commission put together criteria for a request for proposals for consultants. And then they put together an advisory committee that helped them pick the consultants. So even back before we were hired, the city was thought that community involvement was important and wanted to get participation from the community in the decisions that were being made. So the charge that they had in that RFQ is on this slide. So provide vision, goals, objectives, and policies to guide the city's elected officials, property owners, and so on and so on. And all those actors are really important. You know, the city does not get to be the sole actor in determining how the community develops. It's a partnership between public and private. And so all of those folks have a role in how development takes place. So that was the charge. So that was what we were asked to do. And there were some specific criteria that the city wanted their consultant to follow, both in the process of developing the plan and then in the plan document itself. And so these were really the approach, describe the approach that they wanted the planning process and the plan itself to respond to. So equity was important. And specifically the housing for all ages and incomes and an equitable, that's hard to say, equitable economic development was mentioned. Community involvement and engagement was going to be really important. And so we were asked to design a process that gathered a lot of community input, and we'll share some of that with you tonight. Sustainability was also to be part of the approach and part of the conversation. And it was sustainability defined broadly. So sometimes the 3 E's of sustainability is a way to define a holistic approach to sustainability that touches on the environment, which is often what we think about with sustainability, but also social equity and thank you, economy. So 3 E's, a holistic approach to sustainability. And then we were to develop visions and goals. So that was our charge, what we were asked to do to respond to the city's request. So backing up a little bit, what is the comprehensive plan? This is probably not something that you think about every day. It's actually a once in a generation opportunity to shape the development in your community. So it's a long-term plan. Your last plan was done in 2006. And a lot's happened since then. A lot's happened since then because of what was in that plan, because it did play a role in shaping development. So it's a unique opportunity to define the future kind of development that you want. Like the name implies, it's comprehensive, so it covers a lot of pieces of your community. So focus on the built environment. So your housing, your commercial development, the facilities that the city manages, and so on. So it covers a lot of territory. It is supposed to involve the public. because when the folks like Carlos and your elected officials, Carlos here is your, if you don't know him, is your Director of Planning and Community Development. I was afraid I'd get the D wrong. Design and Development. So when Carlos is reviewing applications from folks who come in and want to do a new project in the city, he wants to make sure he's in touch with what the community wants. And so that's really what a comprehensive plan allows him to do. It channels what he believes the consensus among the community is for what development should look like over time. So let's see. Am I on the right page? Okay, gotcha. All right. So this is a snapshot of the process that we followed. And the exciting thing to us at this point is that we're way on the right of this chart. And a lot has happened over the last year. But you'll see the foundation here, that line on the bottom, which may be hard to read from your seats, but that foundation is community engagement. So we'll tell you a little bit more about the types of engagement we did and what we learned. But that was really the basis that we were operating from. So we did a couple of surveys. First, it was a survey about vision and issues that were important to the community. And then we did a strategy survey. How many people here had the opportunity to do a survey with us? Yeah, a lot of you. Good, good, good. Good. And you maybe think you did, possibly. Yeah. So that's great. We had really good responses to the surveys, and it was very helpful in just understanding what the community wanted. So that was an important part of what we did. So the first phase, just to tell you generally, was about identifying issues. And we had a fun workshop that back in the spring, but moved then into strategy development, and then got to where we are now. So again, engagement was real important for us. So this describes all the various kinds of engagement that we did. I think what I would want you to know about this is that we really designed a process that had a lot of different kinds of engagement in it very intentionally. So there were opportunities like this to come to a meeting and talk to people in person and learn in person. There was a website that had activities on it. Our surveys were on paper and online. We wanted to provide a lot of opportunities, different ways that people could get involved so it was easy for them. We also were able to do some targeted engagement. So in phase one, when we did the survey, there were some perspectives that we didn't yet have enough of. And so we were able to go back and do focus group meetings with some groups that we hadn't heard from before. So we were able to do some thorough engagement because, again, that's what the city called for and emphasized for the process. So I think it really resulted in a good plan for you all. So an important part of our engagement was our advisory committee. So can I ask our advisory committee members who are here to come and just stand up for a minute so you can be recognized? So there are several of you. Yeah, I'll let you stay. You can stay at your place. They probably would rather do that. So these folks were involved again from the point where we were. Yes, you can clap for them. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. They put in a lot of work. So they were, again, involved in the selection process and made the great decision to hire us. And then they had 4 meetings during the course of the process, and they looked at trends for us that kind of helped us pick out which trends were most applicable for Olivet. They helped us narrow down the strategies and solutions that we would offer to you. And then a really important role they played was to preview everything that you see at public meetings. And so when we shared the vision with you at the first workshop, these folks had really tweaked it and spent a lot of time to get it right before it was shared with the public. Same thing with what you're going to see tonight from our recommendation. So thank you very much to our advisory committee members. We really appreciate your service. And they also helped us with engagement support. So some of the pictures you see, like they helped us put out flyers in the community to share information on our surveys and public meetings. They've welcomed people. You might have been welcomed by one of them at the sign-in desk tonight. So they've been a really important part of the process. So April's going to tell you a little bit more about different parts of our engagement. And thank you to the advisory committee.
Yeah, so Beth has mentioned some of these activities, but I'm going to run over just a little bit more detail. So our initial survey was a big community vision survey, and this you might have taken in the spring or early summer. And this we had a really great turnout, over 350 responses. This survey really helped us gain initial understanding of issues, opportunities, how the Olivet residents want to see Olivet into the future. Um, and it started initial ideas of the goals that you'll see later tonight. One of the questions on that survey specifically asked about your vision for Olivet in the next 20 years. And so there were a couple open-ended questions. This was just asking in 2040, Olivet will be known for blank. Or when I think of Olivet in the future, I hope it will be a place where blank. So this was really just to get an understanding of, in your ideal world, what would you like to see Olivet as in 20 years? So some common themes came out on top, which was diversity. All of it is very diverse, and that's something that the community really values and wants to continue to support, as well as becoming a more walkable community and maintaining the good school district, as well as a really good place to raise a family. Other things that came out of the survey were a desire for more restaurants, shoppings, parks, fun things like that, as well as a safe community, green space, trees, sustainability, as well as making sure all of it can be affordable for different types of people. So um, then we had oh, I'm sorry, I was behind on there. That's what I was talking about. um, Then we had our big community visioning workshop, which hopefully some or most of you were able to come to. This was a really fun event we had in May. We had ice cream, fire trucks. We had a really, really great turnout. Over 130 people came to this, and this was sort of our really hard launch into engaging the community on a large scale. And we did a presentation like this. We showed kind of a draft vision, but got a lot of feedback on what that would be to modify it, as well as further understanding the issues and opportunities. We talked about some big key ideas or themes that we'd heard from the initial survey while it was still open, and that was the walkability, Olive Boulevard development, housing. So this was our community workshop. As Beth mentioned, we did some other promotion to not only get people to come to that initial workshop, but be made aware of the website, our activities online. So we popped up at a number of different city events with promotional flyers, did a couple coffee with the mayors, turkey trot promotion more recently. And just to give you some numbers on our website engagement, this is kind of where all of this information lives. You probably have seen the website if you're here tonight. But we have over 2,500 people have visited the site, so they're aware. And then over close to 900 what we call informed visitors. That means they've clicked on something. And then close to 800 people that have participated in one activity or another on the website. And then we also had some small group, sort of focus group outreach. And this was mainly to make sure that we're hearing from groups that maybe weren't participating as much on the surveys or that we hadn't seen at meetings as much, just to make sure that we are hearing from everyone in the Olivet community. So we had about 12 hours of meetings with different groups like renters, Asian residents, Black residents, business owners, and environmental interests. And we heard some new things, some also very consistent with what we had heard through the survey and other meetings that we'd had. Just to touch on a few of those, a lot of people were satisfied with the current development on Olive with, some tweaks, very consistent appreciation of the schools and, making sure we have a family-friendly community paired with housing, affordability, parks, trails. Some other common themes that came up were a desire for more community gathering places, cultural programming, and visual presence of Olivet's diversity. The next survey that we had out more recently, late summer, was our strategy survey. And we actually had just about the same, one more response than our previous survey. And if you're wondering if they're all the same people, they're not, because I have email addresses and things that they're new. So really good representation or participation on our surveys. This survey, though, was to get a little more specific on strategies, potential actions that we could take to achieve this vision that we've sort of started crafting at this stage. The answers, I have an example up here that you can't read the prompts, but it provided different strategies for walking and biking and had some prioritization so we could get a better understanding of, how to prioritize and get strategies to help us reach our goals. So this again aided in the development of the objectives, which you'll be seeing tonight, which are further specifying how we can measure to make sure we're reaching the goals, as well as potential more specific actions we could be taking. So to summarize a little bit, as far as the development of that community vision that I've been referencing, some background on how we came to that. To summarize, again, we had the public input from that big community vision survey early spring. We then internally drafted the vision statement that was reviewed by our advisory committee, as we pointed out, as well as City Council and your Planning and Community Design Commission. I was kidding, you're making the joke about the development design. And then we brought that again back to the public at the community workshop, where we fine-tuned it again, got some feedback, sticky notes, and that's where we are today with the draft vision statement, which is, I'll just go ahead and read it. Olivet is a vibrant and unique city, strengthened by its diverse population, invigorated by its opportunities for community connection, and distinguished by its dynamic sense of place. So that's something very concise, and put a lot of input into a very short thing, we understand. In the other room, we do have what we're calling our guiding principles of the vision statement. So you can view those in there. It gives a lot more detail and sort of backing of how all of this breaks down. Now, just to summarize how we got to the development of the goals and objectives of the plan, very similar as the vision, followed the same pattern as we were working on these throughout the whole process. But that initial public input from that community survey, we then began to draft goals based on what we heard from issues and opportunities. And then also added in the feedback from the strategy survey to sort of fine tune those objectives, as I mentioned. And then further getting to the potential actions that could get us there. And all this was reviewed by city staff, council, PCDC, in some joint workshops, but then brought to the advisory committee again more recently to fine tune some more. And that's where we're at with today's draft that you're going to be seeing. Sure.
So we wanted to share with you how components were developed, because it's what you're going to see in the other room, and we're going to give you a little preview of it here. But often when cities present things, they might be presenting their staff's ideas or a particular perspective. So we want to make sure you understand what you're looking at is really the culmination of a lot of public input. And so as you make comments on it, which we want you to do, just understand you're commenting on what we've heard from your neighbors and other residents in the community. We've really tried to to take that input and reflect it in what you're looking at tonight. So just respect it with that in mind, and then comment freely on what you're seeing.
So that transitions us into the goals that we're going to be talking about. And Beth and I are going to show you them in here. And then once we're done kind of running over these, we will then move into the community room to view them all and take questions and have discussion there. So don't worry if we're kind of glossing over. We just want to make sure you see them. Also in your handouts, and if you didn't get a handout, stop by the sign-in table. You have all the same information that I'm about to share. But the first organizational note I will share is that we've grouped goals into categories to organize the framework of the plan. And the first number of goals that I'm going to talk about all relate to the built environment, what we're calling. So that involves housing, transportation, infrastructure, city services, and facilities. We also have them color coded, so you will notice the colors changing, but it's not too big of a deal. So the first one is housing. So the current goal for housing is to encourage high quality housing that is diverse in terms of type and price. So in this, what we heard a lot from the community in housing was, or I guess I want to take a step back to further explain objectives again. The objectives are basically what we want to achieve from the goal. So a lot of the goals are, are kind of, they're very high level, a little generic, but the objectives are really what we want to get out of the goal and what we can measure our success with. Another note I'm going to make now is you'll notice one of these objectives has encourage sustainable practices in future residential development. Sustainability, like I mentioned, was something that we did hear come through strongly in community input. So it is woven through pretty much all of the goals, though there is a specific goal for sustainability. But in relation to housing, I wanted to touch on a couple things that we'd heard and give you a background on housing. In Olivet, we have a mix of housing types in Olivet, largely single family homes, though in recent years there has been a surge of multifamily construction. In like many communities, Olivet has experienced an increase in renter and owner occupied housing costs, as well as a bit of an aging population. So these are all things that we're taking into consideration when we're coming up with these objectives and potential actions. I'll go ahead and go to the next one here. Our goal B relates to transportation, which is to provide a connected, safe, and equitable transportation network for all modes, ages, and abilities. And with transportation, Olivet has different relationships with the county and MoDOT, other regional partners to maintain the transportation system, which in this section has to includes roadways, sidewalks, trails, and transit services. So this really makes coordination with different authorities crucial for maintaining and enhancing main roads. And while most residents rely on personal vehicles and all of that, there's still definitely a strong desire for increasing walkability and bikeability and all of that. So these are things that we have incorporated into our objectives and actions for this section. Goal C relates to infrastructure, and infrastructure really focuses on the physical infrastructure, roadways, stormwater management. And so action items or that would fall under these objectives have to do with specific plan creation, funding allocation, while collaborating with the differing ownerships of roadways as well as utility providers. Goal D is to ensure high quality city services and facilities to meet the needs of our residents today and into the future. So city services and facilities are services or buildings owned and operated by the city, like where we're sitting now. The community, the new community center, public safety, parks and rec facilities and programs. Also, city services have to do with like maintenance of streets and things like that. So this is another section where you'll notice sustainability popping up in terms of city-owned and operated facilities. And some actions that kind of fall under this section have to do with energy efficiency, incorporating green infrastructure, and providing education to the public. And now I'm going to pass it on to Beth to share the rest.
Thanks, April. Okay, so you're 4 down and 6 to go in terms of the goals for the project or for the plan. So the next goal is about economic development. So thank you. Proactively lead economic development to support an inclusive, resilient, and growing economy. So you remember when we were hired, one of the things that the city told us was we want to consider an equitable economy. That was part of the definition of the 3 E's of sustainability. So that's incorporated here. But something we learned when we were thinking about the economy in Olivet is that you're not a bedroom community. You actually have a daytime population that about equals your evening population. You're a place where a lot of people work. And your local economy in Olivet, Carlos refers to it as a 3-legged stool, where you have residential development, you've got commercial, and you've got industrial development. All of that's really important for the revenue streams that support your schools and support your city services. So as we think about the economy moving forward, we want to pay attention to all 3 of those, the legs of those stools. They're all important for funding what happens here and then at your schools. So our objectives touch on that. We know something else that's striking or noticeable when we study the economy here is that median income for Olivet residents varies quite a bit. And there's a pretty clear distinction between north-south of Olive if you look at the median income of the folks who live here. So when we think about an equitable economy, one of the objectives touches on this. We're thinking about workforce development and providing more opportunities for more people. So the city can do that as an organization, and then the city can incorporate best practices that inspire other people to do that too. And so that's included here in the objectives. And then something we heard about almost as much as anything else when we were talking to people was that we want more restaurants and more retail. And so people want to see that redevelopment that's been happening along Olive continue, and are particularly interested in unique restaurants, small shops. So, the city, I mentioned this earlier, the city can't just make that happen, but the city can encourage and kind of set the table in a way that makes those kinds of developments more likely to occur. And so there's more effort that's being made now and will continue to attract and keep businesses to try to get the mix of retail and restaurants that residents are looking for. We didn't hear as much about grocery as we did about retail and restaurant, but we did hear a little bit. Yeah. Used to have 3. Yeah. Oh, thank you. So the next category of goals that I'll talk about is fall under the category of healthy community. And there are 3: community and identity, public safety, and recreation and health. So for community identity, that one of the things that really define Olivet, according to residents, is its diversity. You're unique in that way. So goal F is ensuring Olivet is welcoming to everyone and celebrates the diversity of our residents, businesses, and visitors. So Olivet has gained in population since the 2010 census. You might be aware of this. Missy says yes. So it's grown by about 10%. Your diversity has also increased. And it's important to think, I mean, in a metropolitan area that's not growing, the fact that Olivet is growing is really significant. And so you've got something here that's attracting residents. You're pulling residents from other places. And you probably would guess this, but it's probably has to do with the quality of your schools relative to the housing affordability, or the cost of housing here relative to the good schools that you have. If that, I'm mixing up those words, but you know what I mean. That's really, your population of, now I'm going to get my numbers a little bit wrong, but it was like 8 to 16-year-olds increased by 8%. And so you're getting more kids, you're getting more families. So anyway, that's an important, that's something to be celebrated. So part of the magic, I think, is that diversity. That's what people tell us. And so this goal has to do with actually preserving that diversity. And that first objective, I would just note, is a pretty bold thing to say, that we're going to try to retain the diverse population that we have. You can say, I'm going to encourage diversity, and you can say, I'm going to try to have programming that reflects diverse interests, and that's here too, and that's important. But to actually say we're going to try to retain our diversity, I think is a bold thing to do, and something that responds to what we kept hearing over and over again from the community. So you see it here in this goal. You also see it tied back to your housing goal, where you really want to think about having housing at different price points, different types of housing. And so you have options for people who are older, people who are younger, people who have higher incomes, more moderate incomes. And so that interest in preserving your diversity is going to translate to some other goals too. So the city does want to be a leader in promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they're going to do that in their own shop, and then really encourage others in the community to do that too. And that last objective, I thought this was just interesting. When we talked in the focus group conversations we had, when people would talk about how much they appreciated the diversity in the community and made Olivet unique, they would say, we don't see it enough in the built environment. We don't go down Olive Boulevard and understand that we have all these different nationalities that are here. And so how can we integrate that more into our built environment? And so that's something that the last objective speaks to. So keeping the community safe is goal G, and you enjoy a high level of service from your police, fire, EMS. From what we hear and what we saw in surveys, their satisfaction rates are really high. So the goal here is really just to acknowledge that that's important to the community and to continue the high level of service that's here. We've added an objective on preparing for severe wet weather or severe weather, because we anticipate that those severe weather events are going to increase. And so remembering that this is a 15 to 20-year plan, trying to take a more proactive position in preparing for those things. That really is a joint effort. St. Louis County supports municipalities in a lot of that work, but Olivet can play an active role. So another aspect of a healthy community is promoting healthy lifestyles. And this is a fun time to be talking about this in Olivet, because you just opened a pretty great community center. How many of y'all have been to the community center? Most, yeah, good. And how many are paying members? No, I'm not. I'm just kidding. That's your business. But it is. It's great. So Olivet has actually improved all of its parks and built this new community center just in the last few years, thanks to you all approving it's a sales tax, right? That helped GeoBond. Okay, thank you, Missy. GeoBond that made that happen. So So there's a lot to be appreciated here. But I think as your population grows, as you continue to kind of honor the diversity that's here, that's going to lend itself to us to just wanting to think creatively about responding to the needs of your current population and offering recreation opportunities that are suited to who's living here over time. But you've got you've great parks, trails, and more is coming. So that's exciting. I would note that the final, April's always ready to turn the thing. I'm like, but one more thing. On the final one, increasing opportunities for people to come together. I really like this objective for you all. You're a community that likes to come together. You like there to be events like Turkey Trot that just happened, which is a city-sponsored event, as well as things like the Holi Festival that do not, or Holi Festival, thank you, that are sponsored by others. So if you have an idea for an event and you want to sponsor an event, I think your community would really appreciate it. So so people are looking for more opportunities to do that, and the city wants to support that too. Okay, just two more. Okay, sustainability. So we want to strengthen our environmental sustainability to ensure resiliency to future impacts and provide prosperity for future generations. So in this goal, we're really focusing on that environmental piece of sustainability. So you see that in the objectives. The American Planning Association, I'm going to read something because I need the specific text. The American Planning Association's 2022 Trend Report identifies the climate emergency as one of the high priority trends planners and communities need to act on now. And so based on our two surveys, there's a lot of concern about that in the community and the desire for action to be taken. So that's reflected here. I would say this goal in particular requires cooperation it's, obviously the city can't do it by itself. The city has a role to play. So does everybody in this room, right? And then also regional planning entities are very involved in sustainability. And so the city connects to those. All right, last goal. This is about land use. Land use really is the crux of a comprehensive plan. In Olivet, it's not as I guess dramatic of a piece because you're 99% developed in Olivet. So there aren't a lot of unanswered questions in terms of like what will this land become. Your questions are really about how do we redevelop. So when we asked in surveys what people wanted to see, we asked questions about Olive Boulevard, and what a majority of respondents would say was they wanted the development on Olive Boulevard to continue, but maybe more with more consideration of size and scale of what's being developed on Olive. And so when you go back to your 2006 plan, the last comprehensive plan you had, what was really called for at that time was adding some density. You needed more consumers to get the restaurants and the businesses that the community was asking for. And so fast forward many years, and you see developments like Olive Crossing, like the Oliver, that have really brought some density to Olivet to get that retail and development the community was asking for. So I think what we heard this time was not to stop the redevelopment, that encourage redevelopment to occur, but maybe think a little bit more about the scale of what's happening. And so that seems to be the direction for this plan. In terms of the residential development, you're 93% residential, single family residential. So what we seem to hear was that not a desire for that to change, but maybe for there to be more options, more creative single family options within that. So maybe smaller lots with smaller homes, maybe duplexes, townhomes, some of that you're starting to see. But especially with your demographics and having more people aging, that having more options for single family living is important. Your apartments are also important. 25% of folks in Olivet live in apartments. So that's not going to change. And so having high quality rental is important for the community as well. So that wraps up your preview of the goals and objectives. So let's talk about the next steps for the planning process, and then I'm going to tell you what we really hope you'll do for us tonight. So for the planning process, after tonight, we'll put the goals and objectives online. So continuation of this public input opportunity online for a couple weeks. Folks will have until December 15th to give us feedback online. There'll be a survey form very similar to what you picked up at the front desk to imitate that opportunity. And then we'll take that back. We've been working on a draft plan document. That's actually going to be, how many pages is it?
150.
150 maybe. So what we're showing you tonight are the real meat of the plan. What we wrap around that is statistics on existing conditions, some of the things I've mentioned tonight, graphics, maps, supporting material to explain the context for the recommendations that we're offering. So we take what we hear from you all through that December 15th timeframe, tweak our framework here, and then wrap all that other content around it, and then hand it to Carlos to enjoy and edit for the holiday season. So that's perfect for him. And it's our present. It's our present to Carlos. And then he gives it back to us. We make edits. And then it comes to the Planning and Community Design Commission early next year. And then there's another opportunity for public input when you can see the whole thing. And then the Planning Community Design Commission will adopt it. And then sometime later, the council endorses that adoption. So it's really your Planning and Community Design Commission that gets to approve it, has to approve it. And that's the end of the process. So that's what to expect in terms of like having the plan finished. What we really want you to do tonight is spend some time in the community room where you can look at all of the goals and objectives again. There are displays each for a goal. There'll be staff members around the room to talk to you who will maybe ask you questions, which you can answer or not. So again, just know you're reviewing the work that's the culmination of a lot of public input. So we didn't make it up. City didn't make it up. We're trying to really hear from the community and respond to it. The other thing something else to remember about a comprehensive plan is it really is this high level policy document. It's not going to tell any one property owner or any one piece of property what they can or can't be. If you can, I think I was giving this analogy to somebody I was talking to before the presentation, but if my boss told me that she wanted me to hire somebody, and we are hiring. So if anybody wants to think about working for Shockey Consulting, but she might tell me that she wants someone with 10 years of experience, a master's degree, someone who's energetic and likes talking to people, likes public policy. So she's going to tell me the type of person that she wants me to hire. She's not going to tell me, don't hire April or hire Bruce. So she's not going to get, she's not. So it's not, it doesn't get to that level of specificity. It's the guidance that will really help the city review the applications for development that come in and decide what to do with them. So we do want you to focus on the goals and objectives. At each of the stations, the project team members that are there have also have potential community actions for each of the goals if you want to see them. So if you want to see what might actions the city could take for each of the goals, they have examples to share with you. So feel free to ask them about that. But our main focus is for you to tell us, is this direction? Do we need to tweak the objectives about that end goal that we're, or the end state, what we're trying to achieve with these goals? So that concludes our lengthier than I thought presentation. So thank you for your patience. Fill out your forms for us. We'd appreciate that, and take as much time as you want to talk to the staff and provide them your comments too. If you use sticky notes and put those on the displays, then it lets everybody else who goes through to see your ideas. And so take that opportunity too. And we'll stick around for questions up here, but please head over to the community rooms and take a look. Thank you very much.